story starts with Ken, a man without a job, who spends most of his day playing video games one morning. While Ken is focused on his game, in the living room, his wife Emmy interrupts him. She tells him there's a strange robot wandering around in their garden and asks what they should do about it. Annoyed, Ken dismisses Emmy's worry and keeps playing Emmy, then questions Ken about the job interview he went to a few days ago. But he doesn't reply and just walks away towards the garden under a tree. He finally spots the robot Emmy had mentioned. Curious Ken approaches the little robot and begins asking it questions, but the robot doesn't respond properly and just repeats whatever Ken says. When Ken asks for its name, the robot replies that it's called Tang. Unsure of what to do with the robot, Ken decides to take Tang to an electronics shop nearby. At the shop, the owner informs Ken that they can't recycle the robot because it has no serial number, but they can dismantle it and dispose of the parts. Ken briefly considers leaving Tang there, thinking it would be the easiest solution. However, as Ken begins to walk away, Tang calls his name, causing Ken to pause. Ken turns back and sees Tang gazing at him with a sorrowful expression. In that instant, they exchange a look filled with emotion. Ken hesitates, but ultimately bids farewell to Tang and leaves walking away from the robot. On his way home, Ken remains unaware that Tang, the small robot, has quietly started following him. Along the way, Ken runs into his sister. She asks about the job interview she had suggested, but Ken, as usual, dodges the question and keeps walking without answering her. Meanwhile, Emmy, Ken's wife, receives a call from the medical center, where Ken was meant to attend his interview. Right as the call ends, Ken walks through the gate, leaving it open behind him. Tang quietly slips into the house unnoticed as he follows Ken inside. Once indoors, Tang begins scanning the family photos scattered around the house, storing them in his memory. Emmy, busy working in the storage room, is interrupted by Ken, who shows her a tool he found, suggesting it could be helpful. However, Emmy, visibly frustrated, confronts him. She says, "I got a call today from the place your sister recommended for your interview. Do you know what they said? They told me you never showed up." Ken, seemingly indifferent, replies, "I forgot to go," and tries to leave the conversation. Ken's laziness and dismissive attitude are not new to Emmy, but this time she's had enough. Fed up with being ignored, she presses him, asking, "Why didn't you go to the interview? I want a straight answer." As the argument intensifies, Emmy suddenly spots Tang standing silently behind Ken, watching them. Ken is startled to see Tang inside the house, having thought he left the robot at the shop for disposal. Still avoiding the real issue of skipping the interview, Ken tries to shift the focus by pointing to a watch, saying, "Look, you're running late," though the watch is broken and shows the wrong time. Frustrated, Emmy starts fixing the watch, venting, "What luck do I have? I have to handle everything in this house. Work chores, errands." In her frustration, she throws the watch aside, and in a moment of anger, throws Ken out of the house too. Feeling sorry for himself, Ken ends up at a bus stop with Tang waiting for the bus. As they sit at the bus stop, Ken notices something leaking from Tang. He quickly removes his socks and uses them to clean up the leaking area. While doing this, he spots a logo inside Tang from a certain company. Curious, Ken looks up information about the logo and finds the company's website, which advertises an option to trade in old robots for new ones. Deciding to exchange, Ken takes the robot to the airport. However, Tang causes all sorts of trouble on the plane, further frustrating Ken. To distract himself, Ken turns on the in-flight TV and starts watching cartoons. One of the cartoons features a message saying, "Friendship is more valuable than treasure," which makes Ken pause and reflect as the scene shifts. In the next part of the story, Ken and Tang arrive at the company ready to trade Tang for a new robot. However, they discover that the company is closed for the day, so they decide to spend the night at a nearby hotel. That night, Ken has a disturbing dream. In the dream, he sees his father undergoing surgery in a hospital, with all the doctors turning to Ken, asking him what they should do next. Ken feels panicked and powerless in the dream. Suddenly, Tang accidentally knocks over a cup of coffee, jolting Ken awake. The next day, Ken takes Tang back to the company to try the exchange again. However, when they talk to the staff, Ken is disheartened to learn that Tang is not one of their models, and the company refuses to accept him for trade. Feeling stuck, Ken watches as Tang starts wandering around the company. While exploring, Tang notices other robots staring at him, making him feel uneasy. This triggers a memory or alert in Tang about an event where robots were involved in harming humans. At the same time, a man named Shinji is giving a tour to a group of school children, explaining various aspects of robots. The children spot Tang and, charmed by his cute appearance, eagerly surround him, snapping photos from every angle. Meanwhile, Shinji approaches Ken and expresses an interest in inspecting Tang, saying, "I'd like to take a closer look at your robot, Tang." Shinji is actually a robot designer, though he occasionally works as a tour guide. He invites Ken and Tang to his office, where he discovers a glass container inside Tang, filled with yellow fluid. However, the glass has a small crack, causing the fluid to leak. Shinji manages to temporarily seal the crack, warning that if it's not properly fixed, Tang might stop working soon. While Shinji works on Tang, he notices something odd. Tang is playing with a butterfly. This behavior surprises Shinji because it's highly unusual for a robot to display emotions or curiosity like this. Shinji explains to Ken that whoever built Tang likely had limited resources and intended to upgrade him later, but they don't know who Tang's creator is. To ensure Tang gets repaired properly, Shinji contacts a friend named Otsuki, a specialist in robot repairs, Otsuki assures Shinji she can fix Tang. So Ken takes Tang to the city where Otsuki lives that evening. As they're on their way, two mysterious individuals approach Shinji, asking about Ken and Tang's whereabouts, indicating someone is searching for them. When Ken and Tang arrive in Otsuki City, they're greeted by a dazzling fireworks display, lighting up the night sky. The fireworks are mesmerizing, but as Tang watches them, he recalls a disturbing memory of robots causing harm to humans. Frightened by the memory, Tang hides behind. Ken doesn't realize that Tang's fear stems from a troubling memory of robots harming humans. The next day, Ken takes Tang to meet Otsuki, an expert in robot repairs. Upon seeing Tang, Otsuki warmly hugs the little robot, clearly happy to reunite. As Ken and Otsuki talk, Tang is distracted by a small robot car and curiously follows it, unaware that it's a trap set by two men pursuing him. They capture Tang, locking him in a cage and informing someone that they have secured the robot. As Ken and Otsuki realize Tang is missing, Otsuki cleverly throws her GPS-enabled ID card into the kidnapper's vehicle. Using the signal, they track Tang's location. Meanwhile, Emmy reflects on her relationship with Ken. Recalling their first meeting and her recent promotion, she calls Ken to inform him of her decision to leave and asks for a divorce. Though initially hesitant, Ken agrees, feeling the weight of his failing marriage. Ken and Otsuki arrive at the location where Tang is being held. They spot the two men guarding the robot, quickly sneaking in to free Tang. In a swift move, they successfully rescue Tang and escape together, outwitting the kidnappers. Just then, Dr. Kato arrives on the scene, revealing himself as the mastermind behind Tang's kidnapping. He is soon joined by his companions. As soon as Dr. Kato sees Tang, he immediately recognizes that Tang was created by a scientist named Dr. Baba. Kato attempts to take Tang, but Ken quickly improvises, starting to insult Tang, calling him useless, and other harsh words. Tang, hurt and angry, suddenly releases a burst of warm heat, startling Kato's men and causing them to release their grip on Tang. Seizing the opportunity, Ken uses a slim shot to hit one of Kato's men, causing him to drop his electric laser. Otsuki grabs the laser and knocks out both men with a strong blow. With Kato's men out of the way, Otsuki blocks Dr. Kato, urging Ken to escape with Tang. Ken rushes off, but soon realizes that Tang is dangerously overheating. Opening Tang up, he notices the yellow fluid in the glass container is almost gone, panicked about what to do next. Ken suddenly receives a call from Dr. Baba. Dr. Baba thanks Ken for taking care of Tang and reveals that Tang's real name is actually James. He instructs Ken to bring Tang to him for repairs as they head toward Dr. Baba. Ken finally opens up to Tang about his past. He confesses that his father had passed away in the hospital because Ken couldn't decide on the right treatment for him. This guilt has haunted Ken ever since, and it was the real reason he didn't attend the interview at the medical center, as the memories of his father's death overwhelmed him. Ken takes Tang to Dr. Baba, who replaces the cracked glass container with the yellow fluid inside Tang, completely fixing him as Ken prepares to leave. Tang clings to Ken's legs, as if pleading with him to stay or take him along. However, Ken gently hands Tang over to Dr. Baba, walking away sadly as he heads home. Meanwhile, Tang trembles with fear as Dr. Baba implants a chip into his body, restoring Tang's old memories. As the memories return, Tang grows more scared, but the reason behind this fear remains a mystery, soon to be revealed. On his way home, Ken unexpectedly encounters Dr. Kato, who apologizes for his previous actions and begins to explain his past connection with Dr. Baba. Kato shows Ken his ID card, revealing that he is a researcher. He shares the backstory of Tang, originally known as James Kato, explains that he and Dr. Baba once collaborated on a secret military project to create advanced AI robots for combat. During one training session, James, a robot with an advanced AI capable of understanding human emotions, began to exhibit fear during a shooting practice. Kato urged Dr. Baba to halt the exercise, but Dr. Baba ignored the warning. James, unique in his ability to emulate human emotions, began perceiving the other robots as threats to humans. In an attempt to protect humans, James started attacking the other robots. This triggered chaos as the robots, confused by the turn of events, began fighting among themselves. In the crossfire, security guards were also injured. Realizing the danger, Dr. Baba removed James's chip to stop the chaos, understanding that James, despite his advancements, could be dangerous. To cover up the project's failure, Dr. Baba set fire to the laboratory, destroying the malfunctioning robots and erasing all evidence of the experiment. Dr. Baba removed the chip from Tang, intending to use it for future robots, likely believing that. Upon hearing Kato's story, Ken quickly takes Kato's car and races to Dr. Baba's location, determined to save Tang. When he arrives, he realizes the source of Tang's earlier terror. Tang had witnessed robots attacking security guards, instilling in him a deep fear of how dangerous robots could be to humans. Tang fears that if the chip is reinstalled, he might become like those violent robots and harm humans. At the house, Tang is frantically running around trying to escape Dr. Baba. Ken learns that Dr. Baba and Tang are in the basement and heads straight there. Baba locks all the doors, trapping both Tang and Ken inside the basement. Despite the obstacles, Ken forces his way in, leading to a dangerous fight with Dr. Baba. He uses a trolley to knock Baba down and urges Tang to escape. Just as it seems, Ken has the upper hand. A robotic hand controlled by Baba grabs Ken's head and slams him against the wall. As Baba prepares to kill Ken, Tang intervenes, bravely kicking Baba down. Seizing the moment, Ken grabs the controls for the robotic hand, puts on the gloves, and uses it to deliver a powerful punch to Baba, sending him crashing into the wall. Baba falls unconscious, but in the ensuing chaos, the robotic hand accidentally knocks over a cupboard, which falls on Tang, causing him to stop functioning and collapse to the ground. Ken rushes to Tang's side and opens him up, discovering that the glass container holding the vital liquid is broken. Desperate, Ken quickly replaces the glass, hoping to revive Tang, but Tang remains unresponsive despite Ken's frantic efforts. At a loss for what to do next, Ken calls Kato for help. Kato informs him that the loose wires inside Tang need to be reconnected correctly, but Ken is uncertain about where to place them. He spots two slots and hesitates, unsure which one is the right choice. One slot could potentially fix Tang, but if Ken mistakenly inserts the wires into the wrong slot, specifically the glass slot, it could damage Tang's entire system. During the call, Kato mentions that only Dr. Baba knows the correct slot for the wire. He recalls a moment from his father's surgery when he was confused and unable to make the right decision. The memory of Tang's words, promising that they would always take care of each other, gives Ken the courage to take a risk. He carefully connects the wires and waits anxiously for the outcome. At first, nothing happens, and Ken begins to fear he made a mistake, overwhelmed with sadness. But after a few tense moments, Tang's systems power up and he comes back to life. However, Tang has lost all his memories and introduces himself as James. Determined to help Tang remember, Ken gently reminds him of their journey together. As Tang listens, memories slowly begin to return. He recalls following up a truck and seeing the name Tanigawa, which he misread as Tang, deciding to adopt it as his own. He then wandered until he eventually ended up at Ken's house, where they first met. As these memories flood back, Tang gradually regains his full memory. Both Ken and Tang are overcome with emotion as they realize their bond and everything they have been through. Soon after, the police arrive and arrest Dr. Baba for his actions. With the situation resolved, Ken and Tang head back home together. Meanwhile, Emmy is at their house, finishing her packing. She takes a final look around, ready to leave, when Ken and Tang walk in. Tang plays a recording of Ken promising to return home, start his job, and support his wife. Emmy listens, becoming emotional, as she realizes that Ken has finally come to his senses. She says, "My husband finally came around, but he did it just in time." Moved by the moment, Ken tells her, "Emmy, I need you. I can't live without you." Tang, ever curious, suddenly interjects, "Emmy has two hearts in her body. How is that possible?" Emmy reveals, "I'm pregnant." Hearing this, Ken is overwhelmed with joy, tears of happiness streaming down his face. Earlier, Emmy had feared she would have to raise the baby alone, but now she feels confident that Ken will be a good person and a loving father. They embrace tightly, with Ken promising to be there for his family. Tang, overjoyed by the reunion, begins dancing happily around to them. The movie concludes on a heartwarming note as Ken, Emmy, and Tang look forward to their new beginning together.